courtroom, it's really something else, isn't it? Especially these high-profile trials. So
Oh,
intense.
absolutely.
You've got these huge allegations, dramatic moments, and just this flood of information coming at you.
Yeah, it's a lot. It makes it really hard to, figure out what's signal and what's just noise.
Right. Like, how do you know what really matters?
Well, and it's more than just the noise. It's about seeing the strategy, the subtle shifts. What looks like a huge deal 1 minute might actually be something else when you look closer at the transcripts.
Exactly. And that's what we're doing today on the deep dive. We're trying to cut through all that with the Sean Combs trial.
Mm-hmm.
We're really zeroing in on why some people feel Diddy's team is, like, winning certain moments and also these motions for a mistrial. What's that about?
Yeah, those are contentious.
We've got detailed court observations, transcripts.
Yeah.
We were pulling out the key stuff for you so you don't get totally bogged down.
And just to be clear where this is coming from, it's all based on those direct observations inside the court, cross-checked with the official transcripts, very specific sources.
Right.
And remember, some witnesses use pseudonyms. That's per court order for privacy. We're just reporting on what's in these sources neutrally.
Got it. Okay, so let's dive in. The whole mistrial thing. High stakes. Right. Especially around this balcony incident.
Definitely high stakes. The defense team for Sean Combs, they filed multiple motions asking for a mistrial.
Multiple. Wow.
Yeah, and the latest one claims prosecutorial misconduct. It's tied directly to how some witnesses testified.
Okay. Prosecutorial misconduct. What does that actually mean here?
Basically, the defense is saying the prosecution presented testimony they either knew or, should have known was false, and they let the jury hear it anyway. Things like knowingly using false evidence or maybe hiding evidence that could help the defense, but proving it and getting a mistrial for it, that's a really, really high legal bar. Very tough.
Okay. And this all swirls around the balcony incident from back in 2016.
Right. So Cassie testified first. She said she saw Diddy dangle her friend, Bana, over a balcony, 17 stories up in L.A.
She saw it happen.
That was her testimony, yes. Then Bana gets on the stand, on her oath, and she says the same thing. Diddy dangled her, threw her onto patio furniture.
And that was evidence.
The prosecution showed a photo of Bana's bruised leg. And the metadata on the photo, dated September 26, 2016.
Okay. So that seems pretty direct.
It does. But then came the cross-examination of Bana by Nicole Westmoreland for the defense. And this was seen by observers as a really big win for the defense.
How so? What did she do?
Well, first, she went into Bana's admitted drug use with Cassie, talking about Cocoa Puffs, that's weed with cocaine sprinkled on it,
Okay.
and questions about a drug dealer they apparently called Ray J. The goal seemed to be, casting doubt on Bana's memory, her credibility.
Makes sense. But was there more?
Oh, yeah. The big punch was the alibi. A really solid one, it seems.
An alibi for Diddy.
Exactly. The defense showed Diddy performed in Newark, New Jersey on September 25th, 2016.
The day before the alleged incident in L.A.
Correct. And then on the 26th, the actual day of the alleged incident, he was in New York City, attending events like the Boys and Girls Harbor Benefit, a signing at Macy's.
Wait, New Jersey, then New York.
Yeah.
But the incident was in L.A.
Right. And that's at least a 5-hour flight. They argued it was physically impossible for him to be in L.A. dangling someone over a balcony.
Did they have proof he was in New York?
They did. Receipts from the Trump Hotel for Frank Black, who's an associate of Diddy's. Charges in New York for both the 25th and 26th.
Receipts? Okay.
Including, and this detail stuck with people, a $700 breakfast bill on the 26th.
Wow. $700 for breakfast.
Yeah. So Westmoreland really drove the point home. She asked Bana directly, "Ma'am, you agree that one person can't be in two places at the same time?"
And what did Bana say?
Her response was sort of theoretical, like, yeah, you're not sure, which, doesn't really help when it faced with the impossibility argument.
That sounds pretty damaging to her testimony.
It was seen that way, yes. But wait, there's more.
Oh.
After Bana's cross-examination, the prosecution introduced something. A text message.
From who?
From Cassie. Sent to someone named Christina Knorm on September 30th, 2016, a few days after the supposed incident.
And what did the text say?
It said she just found out about the balcony incident.
Just found out. But she testified she saw it happen.
Exactly. It directly contradicts her sworn testimony.
Okay, now I see the defense's mistrial argument much more clearly.
Right. They're saying the prosecution had this text. They knew Cassie's initial testimony about seeing it was false, but they presented it anyway.
And then they put Banna on the stand.
And the defense argues the government doubled down on the false narrative by presenting Banna's testimony, even though they knew Diddy's alibi made her story impossible.
So that sounds pretty serious. What are the actual odds of a mistrial being granted on this?
Well, according to court observers, the chances are seen as relatively slim to, at most, moderate.
Really? Even with all that?
Yeah, it's just, historically, mistrials are incredibly rare in federal cases. A tiny fraction, a minutia, as one source put it, and getting one for prosecutorial misconduct, even rarer.
So the defense raised big questions, but actually winning the motion is a long shot.
That seems to be the consensus, yes. The bar is just exceptionally high.
Okay, so moving on from the mistrial motions, the trial then took another big turn with Mia's testimony.
Oh, absolutely. A huge shift. And some observers called this the most important defense win of the whole case, even bigger than Banna's cross-examination.
Bigger than Banna's cross. Why?
It seemed to tap into a lot of courtroom psychology, perception. Just the whole atmosphere shifted.
How so? What changed?
Well, Diddy's own demeanor, for one. He seemed much more relaxed during her testimony. Observers noted him, like, lunging for Post-it notes, leaning back, shaking his head, even giving these subtle smirks to his sons who were in the gallery. A real change from how he'd been earlier.
Did the judge notice?
Oh, yeah. The judge warned him multiple times about nodding his head so vigorously, making direct eye contact with the jurors.
You can't do that.
Well, it can be seen as trying to influence them nonverbally. The judge even threatened to ban him from his own trial if it continued.
Wow, okay. And what about the jurors? How are they reacting?
That became a real focus, too. During Mia's testimony, people watching saw jurors, smirking sometimes, having these downturned frowns, picking at their nails.
Looking disengaged.
Some looked disengaged, yeah, glancing around. There were even moments during intense sidebars, lawyers talking privately with the judge, where some jurors were seen chit-chatting and giggling, and Mia is sitting just feet away.
That's uncomfortable to think about.
It really is, and it raises questions, right, about our expectations of a perfect victim. Mia was described as quiet, timid. Maybe that didn't fit some preconceived notion leading to those visible reactions. We don't know, but it makes you wonder.
Let's talk about Mia's actual testimony then. What did she allege, and how did she come across?
Her physical presence was really notable. Constantly looking down, fiddling with this little puffball keychain thing. Very skittish, observers said. Slouched posture.
Trying to hide.
Almost, yeah. Using her bangs, which framed her face, sort of like a curtain. And she spoke so quietly. Press members were literally leaning forward, trying to hear her. She seemed really intimidated, like a deer in headlights.
And what was her role with Diddy?
She was his personal assistant from 2009 to 2017. She described her job duties as extreme. Things like protect him at all costs, being attached to a BlackBerry 24/7, having to stay within eyesight.
Sounds intense.
Incredibly. She talked about being overworked to the point of going 5 days without sleep. Physical breakdowns, blurred vision, hysterical crying fits.
And what was she paid for this?
Base salary was $50,000.
For that level of demand. Wow. Okay. Did she talk about abuse beyond just the work conditions?
Yes. She described what she called punishments, being cursed out, humiliated, having her intelligence insulted, her job threatened constantly.
Psychological abuse, then?
Yes, but also physical violence. She listed specific incidents. Diddy throwing a bowl of spaghetti at her, apparently right after she said she needed to change a tampon because she was bleeding through.
Oh, my.
Throwing a phone at her, throwing a computer after she told him she couldn't just call Bill Gates to fix the Wi-Fi.
Seriously?
That's what she testified. Also, being thrown against a wall, pushed into a pool, having an ice bucket dumped on her head, her arms slammed in a door multiple times.
That's a lot. A pattern.
It sounds like it. She also talked about these hotel room nightmares. Part of her job was setting up rooms beforehand.
Setting them up how?
With lotions and potions like baby oil, Astroglide, and condoms, and then cleaning up afterwards. She described rooms being destroyed.
Destroyed how?
Candle wax everywhere, wet towels, broken glass, water on the floor. Sometimes blood. She said Diddy told her the blood was just period blood.
Period blood. Okay.
Did she mention anything else?
Yes. Forced drug use. She described an incident at Burning Man. Diddy allegedly presented Molly, cocaine, and ketamine and called it a game. A game?
Yeah. She said he forced her to snort it watched her closely. She tried to secretly blow it out. She also testified she saw Diddy being violent towards Cassie.
Witnessing violence against Cassie.
Yeah, she said she saw him attack her, throw her on the ground, crack her head open, chase her.
Crack her head open.
That was her testimony. She also recounted a really scary incident in Turks and Caicos. Cassie was screaming for her life, apparently. Mia said they fled to the beach, got into the water on paddle boards.
Just paddled away.
Yeah. And Mia described thinking, weighing whether it was scarier to face Mother Nature or to go back to Puff.
That paints a terrifying picture. Did she allege any sexual assault against herself?
Yes. This was a major part of her testimony. Multiple incidents. One at the Plaza Hotel during Diddy's 40th birthday party.
What happened?
She said Diddy was praising her, then forced her to take vodka shots. His face got too close, there was a forced kiss, his hand went up her dress. She said she later woke up confused, sitting on a chair in the room.
Woke up confused. Like she blacked out.
That's the implication, yes. Another incident was at a home in Beverly Grove. She was staying in a room with bunk beds, and the doors didn't lock.
Oh.
She testified she woke up suddenly with the weight of a person on top of me. She felt frozen. Described the assault as quick but felt like forever, and that Diddy wouldn't leave a job unfinished.
God. Any others?
Yes. An incident in a closet. She said Diddy had his private parts out, grabbed her head, forced her into oral acts. She described feeling like trash and scared and ashamed and defeated and like an idiot.
This is incredibly difficult to hear.
It is. And one more on a private jet. Being pushed into the bathroom, trying to squiggle out, feeling helpless and unsafe.
Yeah, she was clear about consent.
Absolutely explicit. She testified she never initiated any sexual contact, never wanted it, and felt she couldn't tell him no.
Why couldn't she say no?
She feared losing her job, having her future ruined, or being twisted somehow into being painted as a threat herself.
When did she first report these assaults?
She said she only told someone in the last year and a half. Before that, never. She said she intended to die with this secret.
So why testify now?
She stated it was a moral obligation, simply to tell the truth.
Okay, heavy testimony. So then came the cross-examination by Brian Steele. How did that go?
It was aggressive, very aggressive. The prosecution even described Steele's approach as humiliating, sarcastic, and argumentative.
Really?
Yeah, observers noted him yelling at times, injecting his own views. The judge had to step in multiple times. Warned Steele about testifying for the jury, basically making statements instead of asking questions, and told him to stop re-asking questions that objections had already been sustained on.
So what was Steele's strategy? Where did he focus?
A huge focus was social media. Steele showed the jury tons of posts from Mia's own accounts.
What kind of posts?
Posts where she's praising Diddy effusively, calling him her mentor, her greatest friend, a king, even an alien rock star unicorn.
While all this alleged abuse was happening?
That was exactly Steele's point. To show this stark contrast, he even used the...
And her response?
She said she was never allowed to film that kind of thing and that she would never have told anybody outside anyway, because of the trust, loyalty, and confidentiality she felt she owed him at the time.
So loyalty even amidst the alleged abuse. Then Steele brought up money, didn't he?
Oh yeah, that was another major line of attack, the financial motive.
What did he bring up specifically?
He focused on legal action Mia took after she left Diddy's employment in 2017. She had initially demanded $10 million in a settlement negotiation.
$10 million. Same as Branna, you said.
Similar demand, yes. She eventually settled that claim for $400,000, and after her lawyer took their cut, she received $200,000.
So Steele argued she was just after money.
He flat out accused her of joining a Me Too money grab.
And how did she respond to that?
She denied it strongly, said her lawyer for this criminal case was working pro bono, meaning for free. She insisted she wasn't testifying for money or for fame, but purely out of that moral obligation.
Did Steele point out she hadn't mentioned sexual assault back when she was negotiating that $10 million settlement?
He did. He highlighted that the sexual assault allegations weren't part of that earlier mediation.
Yeah, and her explanation.
She said she was still deeply ashamed back then, and again, that she wanted to die with this secret. It wasn't something she was ready to bring up in that context.
And Steele also kept asking why she waited so long, right?
Yeah.
Especially with Me Too happening after 2017.
Relentlessly. The why not earlier question. Mia gave several reasons. She said she genuinely believed Puff's authority was above the police, that the Me Too movement wasn't as powerful or aware then as it is now.
Okay.
And crucially, she said, every adult that I reached out to within the organization, nobody acted like what was happening to me was wrong. She felt completely unsupported.
So no validation that it was wrong.
Exactly. She said the moral obligation to speak only really hit her when she started witnessing him being held accountable more recently.
You mentioned earlier she kept referencing her therapist.
Yeah, observers noted she frequently brought up psychology or my therapist when explaining her actions or feelings.
How did the jury react to that?
Apparently, that's when some jurors were seen looking away or smirking. It seemed to disconnect with some of them for whatever reason. The prosecutor actually had to instruct her to avoid making medical diagnoses in her testimony.
Just state the facts, not the interpretation.
Right, that's a standard legal thing. Then, on redirect, the prosecutor, Smizer, got a chance to clarify things.
What did Smizer focus on?
Basically reinforcing Mia's explanations. Why did she post positive things online? Because that's what social media was for. It was a highlight reel. Why didn't she reveal the abuse sooner? Fear. Fear of not being believed, fear of being wiped out professionally or made to look crazy.
Okay, so trying to bring it back to her perspective and fears.
Exactly. Rehabituating the witness, essentially.
So let's try to pull this all together. What's the big takeaway from all this, especially the courtroom observation aspect?
Well, first, it's just crucial to remember that watching jurors react, it's totally subjective. You see a smirk, you see someone looking away, but you cannot actually know what they're thinking.
Right. We project onto it.
Totally. So, despite how it might look in the courtroom of exceptions of disengagement or whatever, the real meaning is unknown.
And the public reaction to Mia's testimony really seemed to split, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. You saw those two clear camps online and in discussions. There were people who just found her testimony unbelievable. They couldn't reconcile the abuse allegations with her positive social media posts or the fact she didn't report it sooner.
Okay, there's one view.
And then the other view was from people who saw her behavior entirely through the lens of trauma. They understood trauma bonding, coercive control, the cycle of abuse.
They saw it as consistent with abuse.
Exactly. Their take was, this is how abuse works. It's complicated. It's messy. It's not what most people assume. There's that really powerful quote someone shared.
Which one was that?
It was something like, my mother abused me relentlessly for 57 years, and still the last thing I said to her was, I love you. It just speaks volumes about how complex those bonds can be, even in the face of terrible harm.
That's,
Hello.
yeah, powerful. And it highlights the defense strategy too, right? The art of cross-examination.
Absolutely. Defense attorneys are masters at crafting questions, at framing things, to spin the narrative, to influence how the jury feels. It's not just about facts in a transcript. It's about creating an emotional experience, almost like theater, in that room.
Which makes it hard for anyone watching, even observers in the room, to stay purely objective.
Incredibly hard. You can feel that energy. You perceive these defense wins happening live. But then later, you look at the cold, hard transcript and you realize the actual words, the facts on paper, might paint a different picture.
The courtroom experience itself shapes perception.
Profoundly. In ways that don't always match the written record.
So our deep dive today really looked at both sides. The legal chess match around the mistrial motions, and then this deeply complex human story unfolding through Mia's testimony and cross-examination.
Yeah, it shows how that idea of winning in court is shaped by so many things: strategy, psychology, public perception, how we all grapple with these difficult human stories.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it? In this world where we're just drowning in data and these intense stories, how do you, the listener, separate truth from perception?
Especially when you have raw human emotion tangled up with calculated legal strategy. It's tough.
How do you resist jumping to conclusions based on just, the surface stuff or the snippets you see online? Thinking about this isn't just about this specific case, is it?
Not at all. It's really about how you approach any complex story, any narrative that comes your way. How do you look deeper?